We're going to head to Washington now to talk to Congressman Greg Steube of Florida. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us this morning. The Trump defense team, looking ahead, will finish its opening arguments today at 1 p.m. Your thoughts, have they done enough to earn the president an acquittal?
Well, I think the facts alone deserve the president an acquittal, but I think Alan Dershowitz and the Trump's legal team did an excellent job the last couple of days laying out the fallacies in the case, laying out the true facts that are present, and I commend Alan Dershowitz and his Trump's legal team on a great process so far in the Senate.
Something that Alan Dershowitz and Pam Bondi did not mention, of course, was that Bolton Bombshell. What's been your response to those new accusations of a quid pro quo from Mr. Bolton? What's been the response in Washington to those?
Well, I think Alan Dershowitz laid that out pretty well, even if you take it as being true, which I don't know if we can believe a New York Times story. We haven't heard from Bolton himself. Even if you take it as true, it's not impeachable conduct. But I take people back to the original phone call that started all of this. The American people have the transcript of the phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky, and even the Democrats' witness have testified that the transcript is accurate and a true reflection of the conversation. So if it's an accurate and true reflection, and we have the actual transcript between the two leaders, find in there for me an impeachable crime. Find any crime at all. There's no quid pro quo even mentioned. The aid isn't even mentioned in the phone call. So I think right there is the best evidence in the defense of this president. These are not impeachable offenses. The Constitution requires treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, and they have not clearly met that threshold.
Congressman, looking ahead, 16 hours here to submit questions for either the House managers or the president's defense team. If it was you and you were going to ask those questions, if you were allowed questions, what's something that you want to know?
I would ask Adam Schiff and his team when and at what point did he have conversations with the whistleblowers, and if they do start calling witnesses in the Senate and they do decide to call John Bolton, I hope they call Adam Schiff, and I hope they call Hunter Biden and Joe Biden to testify to some of these facts. I think we need to know from Schiff at what point did the whistleblower contact his office, and did they coordinate his complaint that was filed with the House Intelligence Committee. And so that would be one of the questions that I would ask of Schiff, since he's right there as a House manager in the Senate.
So you would like to question Adam Schiff. Would you be willing to question Bolton as well?
Well, I think if you have information that lends itself to anything factually here, but you go right back to the transcript and go right back to the facts as we have them. There's no high crime, misdemeanor, treason, or bribery that's occurred. And frankly, I don't think you even need any questions. I think on the constitutional basis alone, the president should be acquitted. They shouldn't even get to witnesses. They should dismiss this and acquit the president so we can go about the business of the American people up here in Washington.
Congressman, there is a vote expected to vote on whether or not to allow witnesses. If you were looking at this yesterday when the whole Bolton manuscript played out here, you thought, hey, maybe witnesses would have more, it would be more likely that witnesses would be called. Do you feel like that's still the case today after hearing from Dershowitz and Pam Bondi?
Yeah, no, I think they did a good job of going through the facts and saying, even if you took Bolton's testimony or his, alleged testimony in the New York Times as being factually accurate, it still is not an impeachable offense. So hopefully that has quelled some of the interest in senators to call for witnesses. Again, go back to what the Constitution requires for you to be impeached as a president. You have not met that threshold. I think Trump's lawyers have done a good job of annotating that to the American people and to the Senate, and hopefully they just vote no more witnesses, vote to acquit the president, and we go about the business here in Washington of moving the country forward.
Congressman, last question for you. I want to talk about something that's probably really close to your heart. A piece of legislation in Florida. With your background being an Iraq War veteran here, tell the American people what's going on as far as those dog tags with Bible verses on them not being allowed. Explain that and what's happening there.
Yeah, so there was a decision by DOD to not allow service members to purchase dog tags that had either scripture on it or religious insignia. And when I served in Iraq, I had a little cross that my father had made for me on my dog tags. If I would have had the opportunity to have scripture on my dog tags, I absolutely would have done it. Our soldiers are fighting for our freedoms, and one of those freedoms is our freedom of religion. And for the government to tell service members that they can no longer have religious insignia or scripture on their dog tags, I just think is fundamentally wrong. So we filed a bill to change that policy to allow any service member that they want scripture or religious insignia on their dog tags, they should have the ability to do that. And I'm hopeful that that is a bipartisan issue that can go through this Congress to allow service members the ability to express their religious beliefs on the one thing that they're always required to carry in a combat situation, and that's their dog tags.
All right, Congressman Greg Steube, thank you so much for joining us on American Agenda. And for